This will be our agenda for this session. And let's just start a little bit with our context, or my context in this case. So essentially, I have lots of students from engineering, and I teach communication skills to engineers from computer science and telecommunications area. So it's a big course. It's the first curricular unit they have regarding transversal professional skills. So sometimes it's a challenge also because I have 450 students. So I had worked with this curricular unit for 3 years now. And this year I implemented flip learning, just for us to be all in the same definitions. So flip learning, we will consider it a little different from the traditional, where normally the professor in the lecture gives the basic concepts, and then students after the lecture will work on those concepts alone and do exercises, which are the most challenging situations in the educational settings. And in flip learning, we flip the situation. So in this case, students have contact with the first concepts before class through preparation materials. And then in class, what we do is we do the most challenging activities with the support of the teacher there. So normally flip learning is seen like this by the optimists. The pessimists normally think, oh yes, well, what I think flip learning is, people before class will 10% of students will read the materials and will actually prepare. 90% of the other students won't do anything. And then I would go to class and ask, so anyone has questions? And I have one student that is sleeping. Actually, I had one colleague of mine that used flip learning for the first time, and he started using the term flop learning because it was very frustrating for them. So actually, for them, all students and the teachers so. But we sometimes see flip learning like this, but flip learning can be a lot more. I love Robert Albert, as you're going to see. He's my mentor on flip learning. And what he says is that flip learning can be about generating questions and coming, well, students come to class a little more engaged and a little more known about the material. So also we create time for active learning activities during class. And this is amazing because if the students have already the basic concepts before, we have more time to address and to do activities with them in class. So for active learning, just real quick definitions. We have several definitions. This was one of the first. My favorite one is from Richard Felder and Rebecca Brandt, that told us that, well, active learning is everything that is course related. This is very important. Sometimes I have people saying, oh, Sofia, when I see my students getting real bored, I ask them to jump around and to stretch. And is that active learning? Normally say it is if you're a sports teacher, if you're an engineering lecturer, unless you're teaching physics on the movement, then it's not considered active learning. Also, it's important to all students are involved in those situations. So regarding flip learning, this is interesting because, okay, so in class we are doing flip learning and we are doing active learning during class, but some students didn't prepare. So I'm going to call upon students to do activities that they don't know what they're doing. We're going to address this also. And the last part of the definition is other than watching, seeing, or taking notes. And sometimes I have colleagues that says in my trainings about active learning, oh, but they take a lot of notes, and so that's active. We don't know what they're writing. If they're writing exactly the same that they are hearing, then it's not active. Although there is research that says that it's better to write than not to write, and it's definitely better to handwrite than write in the computer. Still, it's not considered to be an active learning moment. So for me, okay, flip learning looks great. I have preparation materials on one hand, I have in-class activities, and then I can have assignments that are more complex, but they already work on this with me in class. Great. By the way, the PDF of the slides will be available on the platform, and I have links on each one of the slides so that you can work the work too and get a little more research after this. But yes, class activities are active, but I'm still not totally convinced, and this is what I struggled for 3 years. And why? Because I used a lot of interactive lectures with my students during the first 3 years of teaching communication skills to 400 students. And interactive lectures are a little bit like this. So I do a little lecturing, then I do an activity, then I do a little lecturing again, and I do an activity. And my class can seem a little bit like this. This is actually a plan for one of my classes on active listening, verbal techniques. So I will start with the definition, what is active listening, and then they will search online benefits of active listening in engineering, because if it's on the internet, it must be true. And so I use a lot of this autonomous search so they can look it up and see, oh, there are so many articles on this. This must be interesting. And then I will present a quick presentation on amazing research done by engineers. They teach chatbots how to active listening, and they prove that the users really enjoy talking with the chatbots that use verbal active listening techniques. So the students are, oh, okay, so this is engineering, let's hear it out. Then we will do a quick quiz, and then we will hear about all the verbal techniques. I will explain them, I will show them. And then at the end, breakout rooms, if it's a synchronous session, and they will work on this. So this would be a normal class for the first 3 years of my course. And we have some active moments, we do, but what if we flip this? Don't I get more active learning time? I will definitely get it. So for example, this is my current class. So in preparation, they see a little video on active listening. They read a text from an engineer saying, if you want to be a wonderful engineer, you need to know how to active listening. They read this text and they read that research article on how chatbots can learn how to active listening. Then in class, in this case, they do the applications of these concepts. And now on class, we are going to do we will talk a little bit on comments, highlight a little bit further. And we have some questions. Are you okay? Did you read the materials? Any questions appear? Okay, let's clarify this. And then hands-on activities. So case studies, we're going to supervise simulations, we're going to do autonomous role play. And at the end, we are going to reflect together what were the main challenges. Do you believe this works in an engineering setting? Where and how? And we have a complete different class here. So more active. And now I have a poll. I have the first quick poll, and just a question that is, if my learning come from these two different classes that are from the same topic, is that students can actually use verbal techniques, active listening verbal techniques, which one of the methodologies do you think it's going to have better results? Is it the flipped learning methodology, where we have a class with autonomous role play, we have simulations, or is it the interactive lecture? And I'm going to ask so that we can launch the pool. Okay, so probably you chose flipped learning. I hope that you did at least. The question is, okay, this looks great. Okay, yes, flipped learning 82%, perfect. So this still, I'm not totally convinced, because then I had a problem. Yeah, sure, classes are active, wonderful, but preparation, I could almost imagine my students reading papers and watching the videos like this. Okay, another video. Now what? At least interactive lectures, I'm there, I'm presenting it, I'm doing my thing, I'm considering and blocking it with also active moments. Now, what can I do to implement flipped learning and avoid this? Okay, so maybe I can use interactive materials. And I used it with FeedbackFruits actually. And with FeedbackFruits, we could have the in-class tasks active and also the preparations active. And this was a big party for my department. Actually, this is me and 4 colleagues all excited with, okay, let's implement flipped learning. And this was great. We used interactive materials to do this. And interactive materials actually changed a lot of things. So we used FeedbackFruits with Moodle, and what we did is interactive documents and interactive videos. So how? We used teacher questions, we created discussions, and we created discussion replies. So in this case, for example, we have here an example of a video about jargon and the use of jargon. We can see all these blank circles on the bottom. All of these blank circles are comments from students. And all the padlocks there are questions from me. So I had a lot of interventions in all of the materials. And this was a video on jargon, and this was a scientific article on active learning. We also talked on how to give good lectures, on how to give good training in an engineering setting. And they all participated. And how? How did they all participate? I used an assessment method that really helps me out here. And I know that we've heard today that we shouldn't give some kind of awards, and we will talk a little bit about this, but assessment is actually central to the student experience. And sometimes people say, oh, we have to carrots and sticks, because if we don't assess, they won't do nothing. But a quick survey. Let's imagine, if this is actually a real thing, the Portuguese government has a problem because people go to restaurants and they don't ask invoices. So they don't get enough taxes, and restaurants is a big way to get taxes for the government. And they created the system. It's a cashback system that when we ask an invoice in the restaurant, the government will give us back a little bit of that meal's value on our bank account. What do you think happened? So before, people wouldn't ask invoices, and now the government say, okay, if you ask invoices, then we will have that register, and we will give you back a little of the meal's value on your bank account. So did people use more invoices or not? Ask more invoices in restaurants or not? Maybe they didn't. They didn't publish the formal results, but I do know what happened. And probably you guessed it. Yes. Okay, so people ask more invoices, a lot of more invoices, so a lot of more taxes for the government. But why? Why? This doesn't make any sense. Everyone knows that asking for advices is good for the country. Everyone wins. But why? Because life happens, and we ate dinner and then we want to go home. We ate lunch and we want to go to work. And life happens to us all the time. So in this case, what we did actually there in our department with the three of us did an experience that we did. All three of us used flipped learning. All three of us used the same platform, FeedbackFruits. We had the same students, and we had one common belief, that commenting and interacting with the materials promotes learning. The question is, teacher one put the videos and said, comments promotes learning. No points were rewarded. The teacher two asked questions during the videos and the articles and said, well, further commenting on the videos promotes learning, but didn't give any points. And teacher three, you know her, it's me, gave points to students by commenting, answering each other's comments, and also answering to my questions. What happened? We know. I'm going to put here the percentages of which students, the percentage of students that commented on each one of our materials. And we had 0% of comments in the other two teachers' curricular units and 93% on mine. And we hired the researcher to deal with students and ask them, and they asked them, why do you think you commented on Sofia's materials and not on the other professor's materials? And we had one great student that said, well, you know, the other videos were simple and I didn't feel no need to comment. And then the researcher asked, so communication skills videos are more tricky than algorithms of natural language or machine learning, right? And the researcher says it was an awkward silence from the other side. And the student said, well, we don't have a lot of time. So if we are gaining something for doing it, then it will be on our top priority tasks. So this is, I know the main speaker today talked a little bit about this, that we shouldn't do this because, well, we want to promote the habits, but actually there are some research in Portugal, in case of the invoices, people started to create the habit of asking invoices in restaurants, even though the EVA voucher is finished. So grades matter. We like it, we might hate it, but grades matter. And it's not about getting better grades or asking better questions, but it's a paradigm shift. What if we, instead of carrots, we say, well, if you comment on this, you will get something out of it. So let's make it a priority. And it's not about sticks or punishments. It's saying, okay, sure, if you don't want to comment on this, that's fine too. It's your choice, and you can do it or not, because nothing is mandatory in my curricular units. So how is it my assessment method? Still have 2 minutes. And so the assessment method is, I have 2,000 points total. I have 7 topics, and each team, 7 teams, and each team has 200 points, 100 for preparation materials and 100 for active learning situations and activities during class. For example, a preparation would be something like this: 1 video about the topic, 25 points, interacting, commenting, doing everything; 1 article, 50 points because they're longer, and a small text for 25 points. So normally this, I still also have a project that it's the remaining 600 points. So this is a print screen from FeedbackFruits from my first topic, that it's communication in engineering. And we have here all the 3 materials. Each one of them has different points. And for each one of the materials, we can set up, we can do whatever we want. And we can say, okay, so in this case, students have points by creating discussions, answering discussions, and answering comments from colleagues. And I did this for each one of the materials. So 7 teams, 3 materials for each one of the team for the 2 curricular units. The results, I had a lot of engagement during the interactive situation. So for students interacted a lot, mostly on videos. And for example, this is a print screen of one of the activities. So 454 students, 434 watch the video, comment the video, and get all the answers correct. Also because I don't give them correct answers. So it's questions to think about and to answer regarding their opinion. They love the videos. Oh, Sofia, love videos, are wonderful. Texts, well, some are good, some are not. Papers, oh, Sofia, they're so long, they're terrible. Scientific papers are terrible, I don't want it. And normally I have a few students that their grade book is like this through the whole semester. I choose to see a video, I choose to read the text, but I don't want anything with scientific articles, and it's fine. It's fine, it's their choice. They can choose how to do this, and they can choose not to do this. What I want them is for them to learn about communication skills. And I know that the students who decide to read the scientific articles will learn more. So they will have a better grade. It's not that they perform better. It's not that they are smarter or better. They decide to have that grade. And regarding the other results, we had hundreds of questions during the weeks regarding the teams, students presenting their experience in discussions before class. But there was a moment that changed my life, because I talked about active listening, for example, and nonverbal communication for 3 years. And this year, on week 2, team 2, I had one student that started the class. So, Sofia, I have a question on nonverbal communication. Like, oh, go ahead, João. Is silence verbal, nonverbal, or not communication at all? And I remember at that point, I have known 3 years of 400 students, and never a student asked me this question. And now, just implemented active learning for 2 weeks, I have this question, which is an amazing question that allows us to compare verbal and nonverbal communication, a lot of discussion during class. And I'm thinking, it's worth it. Don't take my word for it, because there are plenty of research on how flipped learning can change reality of learning for our students. And I will also like to leave you with a book that it's great from Robert Albert regarding the principles of flipped learning. Also, remember that flipped learning helps us all to have better active learning moments in class. And for example, this Nature articles, there's a researcher there that says that knowing how active learning works right now makes it not using it a little unethical. So we all should be thinking of considering to use active learning. And if flipped learning helps us do this, and having active learning in preparation and also in class, it's great.